Tally ho!
This is the Runners Up Club, a podcast about unsung heroes, lovable losers, and forgotten failures. For those with a few minutes to spend on those who spent theirs in a losing cause.
Hi folks, Ray A. here with another installment of the Runners Up Club, the series that dares to poke the tigers of conventional wisdom, to decry all the attention paid to the winners, the aces of spades in the deck of life, and to wish more upon, say, the twos. Twos only get lovin' when deuces are wild or you're working on a low straight, which just doesn't happen all that often. Speaking of playing cards, worst segue ever, it's the subject of today's episode. The historic decks, the companies who make them, and the person behind one of those companies. First, a little table setting. The history of playing card companies in America is largely a tale of consolidation, a long string of mergers and acquisitions. Over the course of the 20th century, while we were occupied playing trumps and drawing straights, most of the major brands have been subsumed under a single company, the United States Playing Card Company, or USPCC. It was founded as a printing company in the Cincinnati area in 1867, and it's still based in that area today. They've taken the pot. We'll get back to them presently. First, take a moment to pull out your house deck. If you are one of the many bitten by the Texas Hold'em bug in recent years, you'll know exactly where the deck is. If you are not, it's in the junk drawer beside the shoehorn and the jackknife, and yes, the drawer does need to be cleaned out, but that can wait till the weekend. Or never. Got the deck? Okay. Do the backs of the cards have a little winged cherub boy on a bike? You can only make out the front tire because he's coming straight at you. There's a sort of paisley pattern around the edge. There's 4 more cherubs in the corner. The Joker is a king riding a bike looking off to his left. Yep, that's a bicycle deck. It's the most popular deck in the world. It's been in continuous production since 1881, and it's the iconic brand in the USPCC's distinguished portfolio. Well, does your deck feature a prominent circle with feather-like internal spokes surrounded by various geometric patterns? Is the Joker a fox-hunting dandy in yellow breeches with an upraised riding crop? Probably not. But if so, congratulations, you've got a tally-ho deck. Its history is equally distinguished. It's also made and distributed today by USPCC. And its our designated also ran in a category where many could claim the distinction. So that's the frame for today's tale, the bicycle deck versus the tally-ho, the naked cherubs versus the fox-hunting dandy. Did the dandy ever have a chance to be the ubiquitous deck? And if so, where did he lose his way? To find out, we go back to the mid-19th century to an intrepid Irish immigrant named Andrew Doherty. His legacy looms large in the history of the playing card industry, even if his most successful deck was destined to be second best to the bike. Andrew Doherty was a native of County Donegal in Ireland who immigrated to America with his parents in 1834 when he was 7 years old. An enterprising young man, he started manufacturing playing cards in Brooklyn in the 1840s when he was only 21. Early on, he partnered with a couple of other Irish immigrants, the Cowtree brothers, and after a few years working as Doherty and Cowtree, say that 3 times fast, preferably over a pint of Guinness, he peeled off under his own name. Belying a sense of patriotism and opportunism, both awesome traits and not uncommon amongst immigrants of the era, Doherty made an American card series during the Civil War. It included an Army and Navy deck featuring bayonet-bearing soldiers, ironclad warships, and drummer boys, and it had a majestic eagle on the wrapper. Those early efforts were not particularly notable from an aesthetic standpoint. They were fairly crude and unsophisticated, even by the low standards of the day, but that was no big deal, so to speak. Aesthetics weren't paramount. Oh, the high society matrons at their whist may have cared, but the Old West gamblers at the faro table surely did not, and faro was the most popular game of the day. Poker, by the way, was still in its infancy. Euchre was common, but not particularly cool. The business boomed. Andrew Doherty, a veritable Carnegie of the card. After a couple of decades in business, he had over 100 employees pressing out 3.5 million decks a year. Things get even more interesting in the 1870s. That's when Doherty introduced several key innovations in playing card design, many still with us today, including one which was, quite frankly, a massive fail. We'll get to that in a sec. Before we do, though, the winning ideas. Number 1, Doherty started the practice of rounding the corners of the cards. Sharp right-angle corners more easily bend and fray as they're being tossed around the table. Number 2, he patented a linoid finish, which was an extra coating that made cards slide more smoothly across the playing surface. So yes, when you send that card flying into your friend Mikey's lap when you're dealing during your monthly game, you can blame Doherty. Number 3, he introduced the double-ended court cards to America. Before Doherty, in this country, there was always a right side up to the king, queen, and jack. They were like little portraits. Since then, we've got that Siamese twin, like half-torso sitting on the other half-torso, which is super weird in real life, but perfect for cards. So 3 wins for Doherty: the linoid finish, those rounded corners, and double-ended court cards. He was pushing 50 at this time. Could he make it 4 of a kind? Not exactly. Doherty's one big miss came in a now obscure battle in early card design that pitted squeezers against triplicates. Here's the story. In the mid-1870s, the New York Consolidated Card Company, Doherty's rival, pioneered a deck with a corner index. These are the little patterns in the upper left and lower right of a deck that allow a player's fanned hand to be held close, or squeezed together. You don't need to see the full card to know what it is. This is something you may need to teach your 8-year-old daughter or grandson, but it's something you take for granted today as an obvious feature of card design. It wasn't then. It's a great idea. Doherty's competing idea was to replicate the full card in miniature in the corners, so you have 2 versions of the card within the card itself, hence triplicate. This was simply not a great approach to the problem. It was quite ugly, and one wonders today why the man even proposed it. Maybe he was really into the fractal nature of the design, patterns within patterns, but I'm guessing not. The triplicate design only ran for a few years, and then Doherty rightly conceded that battle. He did not, however, cede the field to New York Consolidated. In fact, it appears at one point they actively colluded to keep little guys out of the market by selling their own lower quality cards at a loss. Here's a bit from an 1883 article in the trade journal The American Stationer.
Competition in the playing card trade has recently caused a veritable slaughter in the prices. Some of the cheaper grades of goods that sold for $24 per gross are being put out as low as $9.50. This variation in price is caused by brisk competition, which has resulted in a great reduction in profit. This conflict, it is claimed by some dealers, originated with Andrew Doherty, in combination with the Consolidated Card Company, for the purpose of driving out of business other houses and monopolizing the card trade.
Uh-oh. Looks like our hero today may have been a greedy capitalist and early market manipulator. In that incident, both the Doherty and Consolidated fessed up to the collusion, but they waved it off as a necessary tactic to maintain their well-earned market position. We're going to give Doherty the benefit of the doubt on this. A little price fixing in those days was hardly a capital offense, and Doherty apparently had a keen social conscience otherwise. He'd been friends with Lincoln, he stood in favor of civil rights, he was anti-slavery, he was pro-immigrant. Okay, so that's the state of play in 1885. Doherty is one of the bigger card makers in the country, frenemies with the other big New York company, and regularly introducing or adapting innovations still with us. He's flying high at the peak of his influence, and indeed at this point gives birth to the deck that will turn 140 years old next year. Tally-ho! It's the expression used by the English to stir up the hounds before the fox hunt. Why did he name the deck Tally-Ho? There's no obvious reason that I could find. The association with the tradition of fox hunting was in line with a general popularity for English goods, not to mention the English monarchical history. I think we can thank the early card makers for not foisting upon us a deck with presidents and senators and judges. Snore. Or maybe they did and were rightly ignored. The first Tally-Ho decks were a bit different from what's around today. The so-called circle-back pattern I mentioned earlier dates to 1889. The first jokers were a creepy court jesterish dude called the Jolly Joker. The Tally-Ho Joker, that fox-hunting dandy with a riding crop, was introduced in the early 1900s. By that point, Andrew Doherty had retired from the business, leaving it for his sons to take over. About 10 years after that, the company was bought by the aforementioned U.S. playing card company. Remember them? They're the pot leaders in this story, the heavyweights, the guys behind the bike. Let's talk about them for a sec. USPCC started as a general printing business and began printing cards in 1881, a good 40 years after Doherty got his start. The bicycle deck was first produced in 1885, the very same year as the first Tally-Hos. At that time, the 1880s, cycling in all forms, bi, tri, even uni, was growing in popularity. This was the decade when the penny farthing, those bikes with the big front wheels, were the norm. Those big front wheels, by the way, the penny to the back wheel's farthing, which was a smaller coin, made for higher speeds and longer distances due to the ratio between the pedals and the tire. Now, there's no obvious connection between playing cards and bikes. It's certainly hard to contemplate a scenario where they are used simultaneously, but its popularity as a social phenomenon earned it its place on USPCC's deck. The company grew quite fast. It wasn't due to that bicycle pattern. They just did a lot of things pretty well. Quality production, good marketing, ... USPCC's core competency, however, seems to have been acquisition. Before buying Doherty in 1907, they'd already bought up New York Consolidated, Doherty's New York rival. In that roll-up, they got the B deck, a classic in its own right, first introduced in 1892, and which today is one of the main decks in use in casinos worldwide. More recently, USPCC bought up essentially everyone else of note. Arco, the number 3 US company at the time, in 1987. Hoyle, named for the famous 18th century rules maven Edmund Hoyle, in 2001. And Chem, a maker of plastic cards popular in poker tournaments, in 2004, amongst others. USPCC itself was bought and spun out a few times. In 2019, it was sold to Cartamundi, a Belgian playing card company that was USPCC's biggest competitor at the time. And on it goes. Net result, today, whether you are staring at bikes, fans, grids, aviators, or clamshells, you are looking at a card made by USPCC. The bicycle deck is hands down the most popular and recognizable playing card brand in the world. Here's the real test. When you read a description or hear me say, a cherub on a bike, you may not perceive the design in your mind's eye. It actually looks more like a kid on a pogo stick than a bike to me. But when you actually see the image, you'll know you've known it forever. The fox hunting dandy? Not so much. Sure, there are those who swear by Tally-Hos in the cardist community, those attuned to the finer nuances of the linoid finish versus the air finish, or the use of crushed cardstock, which adds softness and flexibility. Dive into any of these factors, however, and believe me, we did. The wormholes are endless and endlessly fascinating. Any meaningful differentiators from a regular consumer standpoint are vanishingly rare. To most of us, the cherub on the bike is the badge of authenticity and timelessness, whereas the fox hunting dandy is a throwback to a time long past. Could it have been different? Is there a version of this story where the Tally-Ho is the world's most popular deck today? Maybe. We're a big fan here of the importance of contingency and historical accident in understanding the way things are, and there's certainly a world where, say, the Doherty brothers refused to be acquired by USPCC, The companies become legit rivals, and the boys find a way through wit or guile to position the tally-ho deck at the forefront of people's minds. But honestly, I think the odds were always against that particular outcome. The currents of history in this case, in this industry, were only ever flowing in one direction: consolidation. The tell was in Doherty's behavior himself, in that early collusion case, the one we quoted. It's not that surprising. In playing cards, as with any commodity, the margins are low, the profits are in the volumes. There's plenty of pie to go around, as long as there's not a lot of new upstarts wanting a slice. So as much as we may have liked to discover a true battle of the brands here, tally-ho versus bicycle, it's not really what we got. What we have is an environment where the winner, the bicycle deck, simply squats, and where all the runners-up, not just tally-ho, but the aristocrat, the bee, the hoyle, the aviator, after taking down their shingles and entering the house of their one-time competitor, are treated like family. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this tale as much as I did researching it, and that you'll join me for another episode of the Runners Up Club down the line.
This podcast is created, written, and performed by Ray Agustinelli, and produced by, with original music by, Bad Hat Media. Find more at runnersupclub.com. Until next time, keep running.